Right,
You
there
got
you go,
it.
guys. Last week, Paul, you weren't here, but I delivered the sad news I'd received from Chris Hall that we'd lost our very good friend, Keith Jackson. Just letting Peter in, who's a bit late on parade. I did suggest at the time that I would speak with Chris to see if we could create some form of tribute for Keith, who was a dear friend and who most of us knew through the Zoom meetings because of COVID, of course.
Yeah.
And we do have a recording of Keith and his life and his sporting life in particular. I think it was the 20th of November, 2020, part 2 is a session on the website, the www. that John knows so well. So if you want to go back there, it's part 2 of our session on the 20th of November, 2020, and it's well worth a listen. But I thought, and I spoke with Chris, and he's kindly agreed to do a tribute. And the reason we're recording is so that Eileen and the family might hear the tribute in their own time. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to express our good wishes to them, and our thoughts are with them in this very difficult time. So without more ado, as one pilot instructor would say to his student, Paul, you have control.
Nice one, Mr. Chairman. Hi, guys. It's very sad last few days, obviously. I've lost a particularly close sporting and family friend, a lovely man. I'm not going to give you a resume of his achievements on the cricket field, because I think that has been done very nicely, both by this meeting and by Keith being interviewed by our own Keith. So you'll forgive me, this is a bit more personal and shorter, and it's just to record a few moments of a gentleman passing away. Some of you might know this, but for several years, Keith has been suffering from a progressive MS condition, and he lost most of his natural independence and his mobility eventually. Despite this, there were several occasions when I was able to take him both to Trent Bridge and Bramall Lane, which were two places very much dear to his heart and his sports passions. A few months ago, Keith and Eileen decided to move from the village that they lived in near Retford, Rampton, and move and resettle in the centre of Retford. Indeed, within less than half a mile of the Retford cricket ground, and a mile or so from both my mum's house and my house. So they became a little bit more accessible, and they needed services and friends around them at that time. So it was a good move. Ironically, his new neighbour in his apartments was his opening bowling partnership from the 1960s and 70s, a man called, an amazing man called John Brown. Now, you'll forgive me, but I have to just show you this. This is a very favourite picture of Keith's, and it hangs on my wall in my office. If you can see that, can you see that, guys?
Yeah, it's a reflection, but yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll move it slightly if that's any better. I've just said, obviously that's Keith and that's John, and they're both on the photograph together, and they ended up living literally as neighbours. This is 1977. The old gentleman in the middle is none other than the Harold Larwood. So this was Retford's 1977 championship winning team, which Keith played a very full part in, and that was the visit of Harold Larwood to the match. So it's a very, very special photograph, that. This move, the move also enabled Keith and Eileen to be much nearer, as I said, to my mum's house. And indeed, they made the effort, and they were able to be at my mum's 85th birthday party, which again was a source of great fun amongst us all. Well, at the start of this month, Keith suffered some additional bad health, various complications. He was admitted to Bassetlaw Hospital in Worksop. Excuse me. And with Eileen and the family's permission, I went to visit Keith in the ICU unit last Sunday, where he was obviously in a lot of discomfort with his breathing and he needed nursing attention. But we managed in a 15 to 20-minute chat to just go over some very funny and some glorious memories of things that we shared. And his recollections of his batting and his bowling, particularly to Jeff Boycott in the nets at Bramall Lane when he was a young member of the Yorkshire staff and Jeff wanted practice against left arm over. All of those memories remained absolutely pin sharp and undiminished. So that's a great thing to be able to say. My own favourite picture, forgive me for showing this briefly, is 1976. And that's the Retford Championship team of 1976 with both Keith and myself in it. Keith was an ever-present in that championship team. I was a young lad learning the game, and Keith helped me a lot. And that's a tremendous picture of a really good team. Other people on that photograph included Peter Hacker, the Notts pro, sitting next to Keith, and obviously my dad. So, you know, that's a special photograph. Whilst I was with him, I was able to let him know how much I respected him and looked up to him throughout my early cricket career. And I shared with him some of the memories of us batting together, because he was the very, very experienced lower middle order batsman and I'd be number 11 or 10. And my job was just to stay in. Well, we fought some great rearguard actions, and they remain a source of great pride. And he gave me the double thumbs up when we talked about that. So it was all registering. Only the next day after I'd seen him, I got a phone call from his grandson, Harry, on behalf of the whole Jackson family, to tell me that Keith had slipped away. And he died at noon on Monday, the 7th of August. Keith Jackson, as you probably gathered from his brief appearances on our Zoom meetings, which he thoroughly enjoyed, Keith Jackson was a very modest and a very polite man, family man. He had a fierce determination on the field of play, and he had a huge amount of natural talent. He and Eileen became the closest of our family friends, and they never once, in all the years I've known them, which is a long, long time, several decades, they never forgot to send birthday cards and Christmas cards through the post. Not once, always. I played in the same teams with Keith for Retford. I played in the first team, the second team, and the Sunday 11, which he captained. And he was an absolute inspiration. And he was to not just myself, but all the young lads who were learning the game. He was very generous with his time and his patience and his care with younger players. I will miss him very much. But the great thing, and that's a celebration of what we do, is that through sport, through sporting links and shared events, his memory will live on. And that's a source of some condolence to all the family, and particularly myself and my family were deeply saddened by his passing. So Keith, rest in peace, mate. You were a top and lovely man. Thank you.
Bravo, Chris.
Well done, Chris. Before I end the recording, I just think it's worth saying it's a very fine tribute to a very fine man. And every word you said there about the friend resonates with the rest of us, I'm sure, from the Zoom meetings. Never met him personally, but he was clearly unassuming, quiet man, but obviously will be very sadly missed. I hope this recording brings some comfort to Eileen and the family. For now, I'll just say that's as far as we need to go. But thank you very much for a wonderful tribute.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless everybody.